Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. A movie review today, Experiment in Terror, a film from 1962 directed by Blake Edwards, and a very cool film, oftentimes described as a neo-noir. And we're going to examine that a little bit as we go through. Is it really sort of a noir film? We'll see. Now, I'm going to put the spoiler sign up essentially immediately. The reason is this film has one hell of an opening scene right after the credits. I remember catching this on TV years ago, just as we were getting ready to leave to go to some kind of function. I don't know what. And I'm like, oh, I want to see this movie. Oh, I want to see it. It took me a while before I ever was able to actually watch the full thing. So if you've never seen Experiment in Terror, you might want to at least go watch that opening scene before you watch me talk about it. Maybe watch the entire movie and then come back and see what I have to say about it and see if you agree with me. But it is worth seeing, and it's not something that I could really describe properly just with words and with images. So you might want to go do that. If you do, hey, no worries. You can head on back later if you'd like. But let's go ahead and start the review. Like I said, we'll take down the poster. We will put up the spoilers, and we will bring up the slideshow. Okay, so the film begins with very moody music. It's kind of low, it's slow, it's mellow. We have this immediate establishing shot. Puts us in San Francisco. Obviously, it's the Golden Gate Bridge. San Francisco was a frequent setting for film noir films. I guess I only need to say film noir, not film noir films, but whatever. Blake Edwards is our director, a major talent in comedy and mystery. He did Operation Petticoat, one of my favorite movies, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Days of Wine and Roses, The Great Race, Tin. Tin was such a big deal when that thing came out back in the 80s. Victor Victoria, Blind Date, the Pink Panther film series, of course. But on radio, he also wrote for Richard Diamond and Johnny Dollar, a couple mystery shows. And, of course, he was behind the great TV detective show, Peter Gunn. So he's capable of both things. And I think if you've only ever seen Blake Edwards comedies, you don't realize what he's capable of doing beyond comedy. Our stars in this film are Glenn Ford, who's playing John Ripley, who is an FBI agent, and Lee Remick as Kelly Sherwood, both excellent actors, and they are good in this film. We begin by following a car across the Golden Gate Bridge while the credits are rolling. And a couple credits that are really worth mentioning. You got Henry Mancini doing the score. Now, he was a frequent collaborator with Blake Edwards and is known for the Peter Gunn theme, the Pink Panther theme, Moon River, which was featured in Breakfast at Tiffany's, love theme from Romeo and Juliet. Also did the theme for Bob Newhart's second TV series, or major series, The Newhart, or just Newhart is what it was called. He did the Baby Elephant Walk from Hatari, did music for Creature from the Black Lagoon and some other horror movies. So Mancini may be a wider range of talent than a lot of people give him credit for as well. Now, Philip H. Lathrop did Touch of Evil, Point Blank, Earthquake. He handles the cinematography, which is really good. And I there was at least one critic at the time who, well, there's a little too many kind of cute shots in this. I don't think so. It is a very stylish film. I enjoy that, and I didn't see any of that as interrupting the action of the film or framing it poorly. I think it all worked rather well. Well, eventually, we follow the car all the way to Kelly Sherwood's home. And here's where the spoilers really are going to be kicking in, because like I said, this first real scene of the film is a doozy. It's really well done. And, I don't use this term very often, but it could also actually trigger some folks. And you'll see what I mean here in a minute, or if you go and watch it. So Kelly pulls into her garage, and it's dark, of course. And you hear a dog barking, and she's like, "Oh, shut up, Murphy." So apparently it's her dog, probably in the house. And then she turns around and sees the door closing. And it's not an automatic door. There's a look of confusion and worry on her face. And of course she asks, "Is someone there?" A question you never really want to have to ask, and you certainly do not want answered. The camera pulls in tight, and she starts backing away. And it seems like you can hear the sound of breathing. And she spins around, and there's nothing there. She's frightened. That sound, the breathing, persists. And then she's grabbed from behind, a gloved hand. And her assailant is in the shadows. So, smart bit of filming. You're keeping the camera in close, which really, heightens the experience for the audience, but also means you can't see any more than she sees. Right? It restricts the audience's field of vision. So stuff can come out of anywhere. Because the audience needs to feel the terror of the moment. This is what launches the film. You could call this the experiment in terror. Well, then the man speaks really low. And there's really no music in this scene. There's a little flourish when she's first grabbed. But other than that, it's quiet. You just hear him. And he says, and I will say this, they recorded it in such a way that it does kind of feel like he's speaking, into your ear. Like it's really close. Somebody talking like this, they do a good job with that, right? He says, "I'm not going to hurt you." And you get, again, this audible breathing. And it's used to sort of punctuate things, to spread it out. This scene takes a little while. No. I don't want to hurt you. I just want to talk to you. And more breathing. And she sort of whimpers something. He removes his hand from her mouth, but holds on to her. "Now nothing's going to happen unless you do something foolish. Then I'll kill you." More breathing. "I've already killed twice, so I won't hesitate to do it again. Do we understand each other?" She nods. "Good." "You've got a small waist. Measurements 34, 22, 35, right?" And then this wheezy laugh. Very, very creepy. "Oh, I know a lot about you, Miss Sherwood." Okay, so now with that comment, it heightens things, right? She asks, "What do you want?" And he says, "You." And it's almost in a low growl. "I'll scream. Someone will hear me. This is a dead-end street." "You won't scream. And I know what kind of a street this is." "Why don't we go into the house? There's nobody home." "Yes, I know. Your sister is staying with a friend, Will Landrix, 1206 Palo Alto Street. She left at 7:23, and you left for your party at 7:32. You see, I do know a good deal about you. Just about everything there is to know." With this close-up, we get another very deep, sharp breath from the Phantom here. And she says again, "We'd be more comfortable in the house." And he says, "Then you could see what I look like." No, if you could identify me, you might be tempted. That way we both lose out. You'd be dead, and I'd be out $100,000. And I think this is key. It takes the visceral fear of being assaulted away a bit. This is about money. There's a scheme here, Okay. And she asks, $100,000? That's the figure. Well, if you know so much about me, you know I don't have any money. And she's sort of gaining a little composure here, right? Gaining a little courage because, again, the threat of an assault, a particular kind of assault that you can't always say on YouTube, has maybe receded a little bit. And he says to her, of course you have. You've got a whole bank full of it. Okay. All right. So we're learning a little more about that character too. He then proceeds to tell her the scheme. Kelly will help him get that $100,000 from the bank, or her 16-year-old sister, Toby, will be harmed. He's going to make contact over the phone with the details. He'll even cut her in for 20%. Now that's kind of interesting, I think. He then tells her that if she tries to tell anyone or notify the police, he will know. He's not the only one watching her. Now, before he leaves, he tells her to get in the car, straight ahead, and don't turn around. There's more breathing, and the music begins again, just barely. And then, I haven't hurt you this time, because I think you're going to cooperate. But remember, one false move, and I'll kill you, or I'll kill your sister. And more of that heavy breathing. Stay where you are for 10 minutes. And then footsteps growing quieter. The door opens. She sees him walking away in the rearview mirror, again, in the shadows. He turns. Good night, Kelly. You'll hear from me again. And then he closes the door. And holy crap, what a way to begin a film. Now, something like this is real in a way that horror movies with monsters and such are not. Nothing supernatural about this. This could conceivably happen, God forbid. And I'm sure it has actually happened to people. It's very chilling kind of stuff, and it leaves her emotionally drained. It probably leaves the audience a bit emotionally drained as well. The assailant is physically and psychologically menacing, both due to his actions and the dialogue, but also to his remaining in the shadows. He's this mystery, and we'll talk about the actor later. This is a long scene. It's about 7 minutes, and that is like an eternity in film. But I think the way they shoot it, they keep it visually interesting, different angles, different close-ups, and they make sense too. There's a point to them. But it's mostly about Remick's face and the Shadow Man's voice and that breathing. Really, really well done. And it cuts then to a switchboard and a call to the FBI. Specifically, the call goes through to agent named Ripley, played by, like I said, Glenn Ford. Now, I like this. It shows some spunk on the part of Kelly Sherwood. Despite the harrowing experience, her spirit is at this point not broken, but the call is suddenly cut off. And maybe it wasn't really the best plan in the world to make that call at that moment. A gloved hand picks up the phone and replaces it on the receiver. The key, though, is that Ripley gets her last name, Sherwood, so it does create a lifeline. Also shows that our Phantom can very easily get into her house and sneak up on her, etc. So it definitely confirms this guy's not just talk. This is not some guy just trying to scare her. This is a guy with follow-through. He can back up his threats. Well, as she begins to rise from the floor, his foot comes down on her back. I knew you'd try to call the police, Kelly. I allowed you this one mistake because I wanted to teach you a lesson. And still that wheezy, heavy breathing. This will probably become important later in the film. Now, Ripley is running with that one clue. Sherwood and the woman telling him that somebody was going to kill her. So he and his men are going to call every Sherwood in the Bay Area. It's a hell of a lot of work. It's a great shot here. Kelly has closed the blinds and curtains. We get the shadows. And of course, you need shadows for a proper noir film. But the shadows are also going to be sort of like, is he in them? Is he not? They're sort of they're foreboding in that way. And then we see her looking at the phone, sort of looms before her. Okay. She lies down next to it, looks at it, kind of expectant, hopeful, considering maybe trying another call. And as she reaches for it, it rings. She kind of jerks her hand back. She's startled. She finally picks it up. When Ripley begins speaking, she responds as though she's not speaking to an FBI agent. So this is a smart woman. All right. And again, she's been through something terrifying, but she does have a certain amount of composure to her. Well, he catches on and begins questioning. Is somebody listening? Says, I'm not sure. Is he in the house? No. Ultimately, they arrange for Ripley to meet her at the bank the next morning. It's a good scene. You get a chance to see these characters working under duress, and you don't know if they've been successful in their ruse. Maybe he is listening in all this. Maybe he knows, and he's letting it pass at this point. We don't know. Well, Ripley arranges to keep the line open all night. She has to keep the phone off the hook, and he stations agents near her house just in case. So the FBI is taking this very seriously right from the beginning. Well, the next morning, we see Kelly leave the house and head not far away to pick up her sister, played by Stephanie Powers, very young Stephanie Powers. When she heads towards town, she is followed, presumably by the FBI men. But apparently the Phantom has other people working for him. Are we sure? There's an interesting thing about old movies, especially in the 40s, is that the character actors that played gangsters, thugs, crooks also tended to play the police in old movies. You'll see them, in different movies playing those different roles, because there was a sort of the FBI guys are supposed to be sort of tough, hard men, so are the bad guys. But presumably it's the FBI that's following her. She drops her sister and a friend at school and asks Toby if she has anything planned for after school today. And Kelly is clearly nervous here. Toby picks up on it, and she tells her that she doesn't want her to be alone the entire day. So now Toby realizes there's something serious going on, and she's like, I'll tell you about it later. Just do as I say, all right? And you do get some nice shots of 1960s San Francisco in this film. A lot of exterior outdoor shots. Well, then we see some planning at the FBI. Ripley's boss wants surveillance on the younger sister, just in case, and they discuss letting the bank manager in on what's happening. Ripley then gets called in to meet with a woman named Nancy Ashton, who's played by Patricia Huston. She has a friend, she says, who's in trouble. She said she'd try to help. She can't be too specific, that sort of thing. Now, this friend has gotten involved with a terrible man who has caused her a lot of trouble. And would she be prosecuted for something that she couldn't help being involved with? Well, Ripley says, look, I can't make a deal here. And Ford is really good in this sort of role. Because he can play like the serious, kind of by the book professional FBI man, but he's able to show some warmth, some emotion as well. He was able to do both of those things really well. You get some movies like this where the people playing the police or the FBI or whatever, they're a little bit cold. It's a little bit kind of like Dragnet. You don't get that from Ford. And he is very by the book here. He suggests that she break with this man, her friend should break with this man as soon as possible. If she's committed a crime, she will be arrested, but a jury will take into account mitigating circumstances. Nancy kind of looks crestfallen at this. This is not the answer she was really looking for. And naturally, the audience is wondering how this is going to tie in with the main plot of the film. Well, she thanks him, says she'll tell her friend what he said. She says she'd like to take Ripley out for a drink sometime, which kind of makes him smile. He's flattered, but obviously nothing is going to come of this. And you kind of wonder if this isn't her in desperation trying to find another angle to bring the FBI in to what's going on. It's kind of an odd scene, but it's well done, and it does heighten the mystery in the film. We see Kelly now turning into a parking garage, a man watching her. Again, is this guy working with the Phantom? Is this the FBI? We don't really know. So Kelly then heads into the bank, and we get a nice panorama of it from above, and then see her walking through the bank, eventually to her place at the counter as a bank clerk. She looks nervous, of course, and this does also confirm that, she doesn't have a really high-powered job or anything like that. She's just a working person, working girl. An armored car pulls up, men get out, bring money into the bank, and Kelly is then asked into the conference room by her boss. Well, now we get our first meeting between Kelly and Ripley. Nice little establishing shot when she enters. This is, this is some of the stuff that, at least, like I said, one critic was like, I don't know. I like it. I enjoy it. Different tastes, I guess. Well, she tells her story, mentions that she didn't really think the bad man would be violent until he caught her phoning in the house. She doesn't know what he looks like, but she'd recognize his voice. And he breathes like an asthmatic. He wants her to steal the money from the bank, and if she doesn't help, he'll kill her and her sister. Says he's killed before, and he's not alone in this. There are others watching. Now, at this point, she has not told her sister everything yet, although her sister has guessed that something is wrong. Ripley tells her to let him tell Toby, so he can also give her some instructions. She asks Ripley, well, is it possible that this guy knows that you're involved at this point? He says, I doubt it. And he assures her that she will be well protected. Kelly doesn't seem quite so sure. You can't really blame her, since it's her life that's on the line. Well, Rip warns her that this is going to get a lot tougher. He'll work on her and her sister until she might decide to go along with this guy. So this guy's not done playing with you yet. Kelly assures him that she'll go along with him the whole way. She shows, like I said, some definite toughness through here, some confidence in her ability to withstand the Phantom. Not sure, though, at this point that isn't kind of because of naivete. Well, the bank opens. People line up. A man comes to Ripley's window, very friendly, and she has a momentary pang of suspicion. Could this be him? Because all of a sudden, she's realizing he could be almost anybody. And then she gets this phone call, supposedly from a police lieutenant, but it's him. You made a serious mistake. You talked with the police. Do you think this is a game? I'm going to teach you to listen. I think Toby'd be interested in a man like me. She says, oh no, please, please. And we cut to a girl screaming while jumping into a pool. It's Toby. She's having fun with her boyfriend at this, it's kind of like a community pool. And she finds this note slipped into her bag. And the note says, Kelly, meet me at the Roaring Twenties tomorrow night, 11 o'clock. All right. The note obviously is brought to the FBI. Rip examines it. Not much to go on, but it proves the man can get to Toby. And they run down a bunch of stuff they need to follow up on, and they move on those things. Well, the men go to their tasks, and Rip gets another call from Nancy. She needs to see him. Her friend's life might be at stake at her house. He says he'll be there in an hour. Nancy turns out to be an artist of sort, works with mannequins. This maintains an eerie, creepy feel to the film. This apartment, full of mannequins, some hanging from the roof, etc. Okay, we see her walking around her apartment. She's anxious. The music is very sparse. A piano, again, keeping the audience on edge. If you've ever watched Peter Gunn, which I suggest you do, it has this great jazz score, and it shows that Blake Edwards knew how to use music in a movie or a TV show or what have you to get a particular feel, emotional response. All right. So Nancy's trying to work. She really can't focus. She heads to the bedroom and undresses, sits in front of her vanity mirror, and then she hears something. Now, Blake Edwards did not mind lingering on a shot and taking his time. Again, does something very similar in Peter Gunn. Doesn't hurry, but he does keep up the pace. That's the interesting thing about it. Doesn't feel rushed, but it also doesn't feel like There's nothing going on. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Well, Nancy finally investigates the noise. There's really nice cinematography through here. The piano maintains the tension. She finally seems satisfied that there's nobody out there, locks the doors, turns out the lights, heads back to her bedroom. But as the camera pans, we see a head that does not belong to a mannequin. And this ties Nancy into Kelly's case. And we now see that the Phantom is played by Ross Martin, who also worked on Mr. Lucky, a Blake Edwards TV production. Of course, best known as Artemis Gordon on Wild Wild West. Very good actor. Very good actor. The scene ends with him walking towards Nancy's bedroom. We get the ring of a phone. It's a nice scene cut. They're good at that in this movie. Rip is calling Kelly to check in before she goes to bed. All seems well. And this leads to a scene between Kelly and Toby. Kelly's obviously explained everything now to Toby. And she assures her that this phantom asthmatic really means what he says, but Ripley and his men won't let anything happen. Their conversation is interrupted by another ring of the phone. Phones do loom large in this film. Voices from faces that you cannot see, sometimes friendly, sometimes not. Well, it's the Phantom. And we can see where he is. And he says nothing. And then he takes a drag on a cigarette as Kelly hangs up. The cigarette is suggestive here, and the shot is great. This also gives us a chance to see the FBI men are now staking out Kelly's house from a house across the street. We get a shot of that as well. Well, we now cut to Rip arriving at Nancy's. He has another agent with him. Rings the door buzzer, no answer, but the door is unlocked and opens when he touches it. They enter, look around a bit, and the other agent spots Nancy first. So question, is this entirely due to a matter between the Phantom and Nancy? And we're just showing what this man's capable of? Or, is this a way that the Phantom can let Rip know that he knows the FBI is involved? Okay. At a minimum, it does show the audience what the Phantom is capable of. He's capable of murder. And the danger, again, to Kelly and Toby is very, very real. Well, as the agent leaves to call the bureau, the landlord enters, played by James Lanphier, who also worked with Edwards on Peter Gunn in the third season and in The Pink Panther. He's questioned, knows nothing. Meanwhile, the FBI is scouring the crime scene. We learn that Nancy was strangled. Rip is asked if this has anything to do with the Sherwood case. He doesn't think so at this point. The question is due to some info received from an informant who might know something about the Sherwood case. And then the police find a note that reads, Kelly Sherwood, 100 St. Germain. Aha, so this is definitely connected. We cut to a theater showing a silent comedy and a man munching popcorn. And the informant, in fact, here is known as Popcorn. And another collaborator, again, with Edwards. He was in, I think, maybe a couple episodes of Peter Gunn. See where Edwards seemed to like certain actors and like working with them. Well, he's summoned from the theater for a meeting with Rip. They learn from him the Phantom has a friend in on the bank job, and the friend uses a phone that Popcorn has staked out. The men spoke, and it involved possibly killing Miss Sherwood. Not now, but later. The friend is unseen, and Popcorn will not tell them where the phone is. No use putting a tail on him, the other agent says. He spots him every time. So this guy has some information they need, but he's being a little cagey about it. Now this gets interesting. The scene switches to an alarm clock, ticking, and then the alarm goes off. Hand reaches over and silences it. And then we see that it's our killer. He rubs his hand over his face, yawns, and then begins wheezing. He jumps up, sprays something into his throat, and he sits back on the bed, breathing easier, kind of lays down for a moment, and then he grabs the phone to make a call. So now we've finally seen him actually kill. We're going to meet this guy a little more face to face. The call, of course, is to Kelly. She answers the phone and is annoyed at the sound of his voice. Just kind of annoyed at this game. He doesn't like her tone. After all, he's giving her 20% of $100,000. The call is to reconfirm the appointment and another threat towards Toby if Kelly does not show. The FBI boss gives orders to the troops. A woman's life is at stake tonight. We hope there won't be any shooting, etc., but be ready. Rip steps up to tell them the layout of this club, and this morphs into him showing Kelly the layout of the club. It's kind of a neat shot the way they do it. So here's where we're all going to be stationed, etc. Well, Kelly asks Rip if he thinks he might really try something with Toby, the Phantom. He'd like to say no, but there's no way of knowing until we know the man. So Ripley is, he's like, look, we're going to protect you, but he's also not, he's honest about stuff here. Again, he's honest. He's by the book. Well, Kelly says she believes he knows that she's been talking to the FBI. Rip doesn't think so. Thinks the guy believes his plan is so clever that it doesn't matter what Kelly does. It's going to succeed no matter what. Well, that night at the Roaring Twenties nightclub, Kelly enters. She's nervous, moves into the club through a crowd. Great scene when you consider that any man there could be the Phantom, the killer, and any woman there could be working with him. And all these people are pressed against her. So, very vulnerable sort of thing. She heads downstairs. It's crowded as well. She has to wait at the bar. There are these women swinging overhead on these swings because it's like this Roaring Twenties thing, okay? And we get a glimpse of Kelly from their angle. So maybe a little bit indulgent with that shot. But I do like that Edwards and Lathrop were trying things. And again, I don't think that it really gets in the way of the story or anything. It's a quick shot. Okay. Well, she waits at the bar for a contact, and finally a guy shows up and walks over. Now, we know it's not the Phantom, but it could be the Phantom's associate. Guy has a drink, looks her over, and then he leaves. Well, she follows him to a shooting gallery that's in that basement of the club. And we see that he's very good with a gun, at least against metal ducks. Their eyes meet again, and she gets nervous, and she leaves. And 2 FBI men follow her, and the man kind of sees that, but he follows as well. Well, he approaches her again outside while she waits for the valet to bring her car. Are you looking for someone? Yes. Well, I could be that someone. Well, are you? He takes her to his car. She'd rather talk right there, but she goes along with him. They get in his car and pull out, and the feds follow. Well, as Kelly speaks with the man, it slowly dawns on her that this is not the man who was sent to meet her, or it's not the Phantom. He's just some guy trying to pick her up. And she sort of panics at this. And he won't pull over. So she opens the door and tumbles out of the car, nearly getting hit by a truck. The feds swarm the guy, who looks completely shocked. Definitely not one of his best dates. Well, back at home, the phone rings. And the guy says, the Phantom says, you double-crossing dirty little. And she talks over this a bit. But you can definitely tell that he calls her a bitch, which wasn't mega common in movies at that time. So Edwards, with a few shots in this thing, is pushing the boundaries a bit. Well, she argues with him. This is his fault. How is she supposed to know what he looks like? Why don't you come out of your little hole and come get me? He ends the conversation, a smile on his face, telling her he thinks the man who picked her up was a cop. So he's playing with her a lot here. Well, a teletype at the FBI office. Subject believed to be Garland Humphrey Lynch, alias Gar Lynch, alias Red Lynch. This is based on the asthma. Lynch has convictions for statutory rape, forgery, criminal assault, armed robbery, and murder, wanted for the slaying of a bank teller in Oklahoma. He's fond of movies, nightclubs, fishing, amusement parks. He frequently establishes liaisons with women of Oriental descent. That's what they have on him in the FBI files. And when we see this photo, we know that they indeed have their man. Now, the trick will be finding him. So this is an interesting twist in the tale for me. You would expect they would maintain the mystery aspect of the Phantom through the picture until the end, but no, that's not what they're doing here. At this point, we're only about halfway through the film. Well, at any rate, this launches a manhunt. We see agents in nightclubs, by the Wharf, Chinatown, etc. Good opportunity, again, to see what San Francisco looked like in 1962. Now, here I will say, while this film has been described as a neo-noir, and it does have a noirish look to it, I think it's much closer to a police procedural. It's way more stylish than police procedurals of the period, but a noir typically involves a normal person walking on the dark side, and usually of their own accord. They get tempted. That's not what happens with Kelly. She's dragged into this. The FBI are involved right from the beginning. To me, it's much more reminiscent of a Hitchcock film. Normal person dragged into something extraordinary who has to then find their way out of it. So at this point, do I think this is really a neo-noir? Not really. It has the look, but it doesn't really have the more important elements of a noir. Noir is, shadow and light on the screen, but it's also shadow and light in the hearts of man. And you don't get so much of that here. I mean, the bad guy's just plain bad. Well, they finally get a lead. The priest at a church in Chinatown has seen this man with one of his parishioners, Lisa Sung. At her home, they question her about Lynch. She claims she doesn't know him. They tell her that he's wanted for murdering a woman about her age. And she asks to speak to her lawyer. Lives across the street. She calls while they wait. She makes the call in Chinese and then asks, if she can leave the room to make some tea. Ripley responds in Chinese that she can. So it's a nice touch, letting her know, I know what you said to the lawyer. You didn't hide anything from me. Well, the lawyer hurries over as Lynch is approaching the building, and he sees that something is going on in her apartment. The lawyer convinces Lisa to cooperate with the feds. She doesn't know where Red Lynch lives. Last saw him a week ago. Sometimes she doesn't hear from him for a month or so. First met him 2 years ago. She remains hostile through the interview. And Rip ends it by warning her that he's killed 3 people and will go on killing until they find him. Her lawyer warns her after they leave that if she's holding information back, she will be guilty of being an accessory. Back at the office, Rip learns that Lynch was identified by Nancy Ashton's landlord. One of them thinks that Lisa might be protecting him just because she's in love with him. Rip bets that it's more than that, and he might be right. The feds follow her to a building, the Kaiser Foundation, a hospital. Turns out she has a son there, Joey, who was born without a hip socket. Rip speaks with the boy while the other agent looks for Lisa. We find out here that he sometimes is visited by Uncle Red. We also learn Ripley has never shot anyone. Little boy's asking him about the gun and stuff like that. Seems like innocent questioning by the child maybe could be important to the story. Well, it turns out Lynch has paid the medical bills for this kid, thousands of dollars. He's been like a father to Joey. Lisa tells them, you can go to hell. She is not going to help them. So this scene fleshes out the Lynch character a bit. This is obviously a very bad man, but then he's doing things like this for a sick kid. Kind of interesting. Next day, we see Kelly go into a lunch spot with a friend, heads into the ladies' room, and while checking her makeup, Lynch enters behind her, disguised as an old woman. This is the first time she's now seen this man face to face. She's not thrilled. Remember the last time they spoke, he accused her of consorting with the police, and he's already threatened to kill her if she does that. Well, he doesn't kill her. Tells her to take the money Friday afternoon, put it in your purse, and just walk out. Go straight home, and he'll get in touch with her. There's not as much menace in him now, though he does pull a gun on her before he leaves. Is it because the police are closing in on him? Is it because his time is limited for other reasons, i.e. an illness? Either way, the pressure is starting to get to Kelly. Well, the info is passed to Ripley. Bank president confirms the only time she would have access to that kind of money is on Friday. So if Lynch knows what he's doing. They talk about next steps. Kelly comes right out with believing that Lynch will not let her live no matter what happens. She asks Rip if he thinks they have a chance. He replies yes, very forcefully, very calmly. He has one thing he wants her to do. He wants her to take Toby swimming today after work. Seems like an odd request. Well, at the pool, Ripley also has invited popcorn. Popcorn's planning on selling the story to a reporter, and Ripley's like, if you do that, you're putting these women in danger. And he points his attention to Kelly and Toby and lets them know, if you do this, those are the people you're going to maybe be killing. Interesting tactic. Back at the office, Ripley gets a call from an anonymous tipster, and it is Lynch. He puts a trace on the call. This is basically Lynch trying to figure out if the FBI is involved in the case. Ripley knows. He plays dumb, but they don't have time to get a trace. So he's more or less assured Lynch, no, we don't know anything about this case. What are you talking about? So Lynch feels confident now moving forward. Well, meanwhile, a heavy fog rolls in around Kelly's home. The feds are having trouble keeping an eye on things. A mysterious car approaches the home and then parks up the street. The feds surround what turns out to be a drunk. Ripley, in the meantime, meets again with Popcorn. He's decided to come across for the girls. He'll show Ripley where the phone is that Lynch's friend uses. This guy is making arrangements to get Lynch out of the country. So here's a big break. They got to find this guy. He brings Ripley to the phone, rings at midnight. The man approaches on the fire escape where Rip and Popcorn are sort of hiding. Takes a shot at Ripley. Ripley takes him out. So if he'd never killed with a gun before, he has now. Another agent is there on the spot. There are other FBI agents around. This guy is John Shoemaker. He's a runner, so he's a courier of things. And we also see that Popcorn has bought the farm here. Well, the next day, Ripley visits the hospital again, where Lisa's son is in physical therapy after having this operation. She won't talk, and her son doesn't know where Uncle Red lives. But he does mention that Uncle Red got him this one toy, this big stuffed tiger that's on his bed. Maybe that's a clue. Well, we also see Kelly and Toby leaving their home, watched by the FBI, and later Toby and a boyfriend going to a malt shop, again, watched by the FBI. At the shop, a call comes through for Toby. It's Lynch, and he tells her that her sister has been shot. It was an accident, but somebody has to get her to the hospital or she's going to bleed to death. She's to meet him at a street corner alone right now. She is terrified, and she falls for this. Leaves by the back, so the feds don't see her leave. Fortunately, her boyfriend sees her running out. He runs outside looking for her, and this alerts the feds. So they go looking as well. As she runs down the sidewalk, Lynch picks her up in a car. So now he has her. Brings her to this little building. Tells her that her sister's okay. She is terrified. He tells her to take off her clothes. She obeys. As he watches, she removes her skirt and her sweater. She's crying. He has her throw them to him. He has her sit, and he walks to a roll-up desk, revealing a phone. With this, he calls Kelly to let her know that he has Toby. He instructs her to drive to Fisherman's Wharf and park in the open market. Now, that's with the money. She's to walk over to a gas station where she'll get her instructions at exactly 7:30. The entire conversation with Kelly is taped by an agent. Now, Kelly agrees, and he tells her that he has Toby. She'll be released, though, when he has the money. They play this scene for tension. What might he do? Well, thankfully, he doesn't do anything more than frighten her. Ultimately locks her in this closet in this place. But can you imagine how terrifying that would be? Well, the feds are now trying to find Lynch and trying to find Toby. Meanwhile, Kelly grabs a bundle of money at the bank and puts it in her purse. She checks to see if anybody has seen. They haven't. Grabs another. Kind of drops it on the floor because she's nervous, etc. She ultimately gets it, though. All the other tellers are putting money in their strong boxes. They're leaving. So again, played for tension. Kelly had said she did not want to be responsible for actually carrying real money, but now she's grabbing it, and you're going, is Kelly now going off script because she has Toby, or he has Toby? Was this part of the plan? Is this not part of the plan? It's hard to tell. They maybe could have made that a little more obvious in the film. Well, she heads down to turn in her strong box, and it's accepted, and she leaves. She's worried at first they're going to notice the money missing. So she leaves. Money is in her purse. Cue to a helicopter flying over a street. I kind of put this in just for the location shot, but we then see Kelly pulling into Fisherman's Wharf. She's parking. An agent is watching her because, of course, they know what she's supposed to do. They were listening in on that call from Lynch. And we then see her waiting by the phone booth. Lots of men are watching. One from his car, one's posing as like a dock worker. Finally gets the call, and I think this is important. We do not get to hear this one. We're now in the dark on this one, just like the feds are. Kelly walks across the street, gets into a cab. It's being followed by feds in a car, and the helicopter's flying overhead. We get this really kind of fake helicopter shot, but the idea of helicopter surveillance was very high tech at the time. So cool that they put it in. Well, the feds check with the cab company, find out the destination is Candlestick Park. Well, meanwhile, the cabbie hands Kelly a package. The man who sent him told him to give it to her, and of course, it is Toby's clothing. But it also contains a ticket to the game that night. I think it's Giants and Dodgers. Now, I mentioned Hitchcock earlier. Normal person pulled into a dangerous situation, one of his big tropes, but he also made it a rule. If you put a movie in a particular city, you use the famous spots in that city in the film. So we've seen the Golden Gate Bridge, Fisherman's Wharf, now Candlestick Park. Again, feeling to me more like a takeoff of Hitchcock than a true film noir. Well, that night, Candlestick Park, we get a nice view of it. Kelly arrives in the cab, enters the park, goes to her seat, and we can see that Lynch is not sitting next to her. Now, Ripley is briefing his agents and police on what to expect. And then we're in a toy store. Feds have tracked down that toy store where Lynch bought the stuffed tiger. They have an address. So it's all coming to a head now. Kelly sits nervously as the game's going on around her, waiting for the contact, scans the crowd with some binoculars borrowed from the guy beside her. And she sees Ripley, who looks back at her. So she knows there's backup there. Remember, she was a little bit off script here. So she's maybe worried that the feds have no idea where she is. It's all up to her. She's reassured. Ripley's there. Meanwhile, the agents and police storm the address that they got from the toy store, and they find Toby, scared as hell, but she is safe. The game ends with no contact. Kelly reluctantly leaves her seat, begins to walk with the crowd. Looks like he's going to make the contact there. The police are on high alert. They're in the crowd as well and off to the sides looking. It's very effective. We've seen her in a crowd before. Very effective, though, I think, to put her into this situation. We began with her alone in the dark with Lynch. Now we're in a crowd, and it's equally as scary, because it's confusion and chaos. You don't know who's around you and what's happening, and people are bumping into you. Are they, is it a bad guy? Is it just a horrible person? Who knows? Well, finally, we see Lynch smiling. He is sure that he has this. Kelly walks past, and he kind of gets in behind her and grabs her again. And now they're walking beside one another, and Ripley seems to notice. They desperately push through the crowd. Finally, Ripley grabs Lynch while Kelly is pulled to the side and shielded by another agent. Lynch wriggles away. He runs. They chase. Finally sees that he's surrounded, and he pulls a gun, opens fire into the crowd. They're screaming. He suddenly finds himself, though, running down this corridor that leads down to the ball field. And now he's completely surrounded. Helicopter is above. Cops are moving in from all directions. He makes as though he's going to fire at the helicopter, and Ripley cuts him down. As Lynch struggles to breathe, we see Kelly and Toby reunited. Lynch wheezes his last while Ripley looks down on him with disdain. The end. All right. So, let's see. Let's take the spoilers off. So what do we have? In my opinion, no, this is not a noir film. It doesn't have some of the more important hallmarks of it. It's a crime film, but it's not a noir film. It's a procedural. There are some Hitchcockian elements to it, in my opinion. And it's a pretty good procedural. But maybe not a great procedural. But it's got a lot of style. It's well shot. I can see where some people go, nah, it's too much style, not enough substance. I could see that. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I liked the style. I think there is enough substance. I would have liked Lee Remick to maybe show a little more tension on her face. It's there and then it isn't. And it's there and then it isn't. Glenn Ford, I think, is great throughout. Exactly what he needs to be in this role. Ross Martin's friggin' great. Friggin' great as the bad guy. I think it is definitely a film worth watching. I don't know that you're going to watch it and say, that's the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life. But I think it's well worth it. Fun to watch the thing unfold as they look for those clues desperately. And again, just a very stylish film. It's very pretty. It's a pretty film to look at, and the music and how it's all used. Blake Edwards knew his stuff. Now, he's going to go on to make a lot more films after this one. I think it showed the great talent that he had. I don't think it's maybe fully appreciated these days. I think he should be looked at a little bit more as a director, not only of comedies, but also of shows or films like this. So there you go, folks. An Experiment in Terror, 1962. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like, maybe subscribe, maybe share with a friend. That'd be very cool. But in the meantime, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. Go check out An Experiment in Terror. You can find it on YouTube at the moment. Don't know how long it'll be there, but it is from Sony, so you don't have to even feel, guilty about it. And I will see you again, hopefully soon, in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.